The front door slammed like a gunshot in the silent Ohio night, shattering the fragile peace of the Harper family living room where tinsel-draped stockings hung limp over the fireplace. David's mother, Evelyn, clutched her rosary beads so tight her knuckles whitened. Her eyes, usually soft with the glow of mulled wine and carols, now burning with a fury that twisted her face into something unrecognizable. "You're no son of mine if you bring that filth into this house," she spat, the words slicing deeper than the winter wind howling outside. As David stood frozen in the doorway, his duffel bag slipping from his shoulder like a confession he could no longer carry. David Harper had always been the golden boy of Milford, Ohio, a freckle-faced kid with a quarterback's arm and a smile that could charm the frost off the church steeple. Born and raised in the shadow of the steel mill that his father had slaved at for 30 years before it shuttered in '08, David grew up believing in the holy trinity of family, football, and faith. Sundays meant potluck at First Baptist, where Evelyn's apple pie was legend, and Christmases were sacred rituals. The scent of pine invading the cramped ranch house, Bing Crosby crooning from the old radio, and his mother's hands guiding his as they strung lights on the sagging blue spruce in the front yard. But that was before the whispers started, before the sidelong glances at the locker room showers, before the night in his senior year when he kissed Tommy Riley behind the bleachers and felt the world crack open like a fault line. Now, at 24, David was back in Milford for what was supposed to be his last Christmas under that roof. He'd driven 16 hours from Chicago, where he'd scraped by as a barista at a hipster coffee joint in Wrigleyville, dreaming of art school scholarships that never came. The city had been his escape hatch after college, after the blowout fight with Evelyn 2 Thanksgivings ago, when she'd found the crumpled printout of a Grindr chat in his laundry basket. "It's a phase," she'd insisted then, her voice trembling as she folded his jeans with ritual precision. "Boys like you, they get confused. But God doesn't make mistakes." David had nodded, swallowed the bile rising in his throat, and bolted the next morning, leaving behind the turkey carcass and his little sister's bewildered tears. This time, he'd promised himself it would be different. No more hiding. He'd rehearsed the words in the rearview mirror of his beat-up Civic. "Mom, Dad, I have someone I want you to meet. His name is Ryan. Ryan Ellis, the graphic designer with the laugh like summer thunder and eyes the color of Lake Michigan on a clear day." They'd met 6 months ago at a queer poetry slam in Boys Town, where Ryan's spoken-word piece about lost Midwestern boys had left David sobbing into his overpriced IPA. What started as awkward post-reading drinks turned into stolen weekends in Ryan's Logan Square walk-up, tangled sheets and whispered futures. Ryan was everything Milford wasn't, unapologetically out, with tattoos snaking up his arms like vines claiming a forgotten trellis, and a family back in Portland who'd sent rainbow flags instead of fruitcakes. But as David pulled into the gravel driveway that December 23rd, the house loomed like a judgment. Lights blinked erratically from the eaves. His father, Frank, had half-assed the installation again, and the plastic reindeer on the lawn tilted drunkenly, as if it knew the storm brewing inside. David killed the engine, his palms slick on the wheel. Inside, the TV droned with some Hallmark movie about second chances, and he could hear Evelyn humming "Oh Holy Night" in the kitchen. For a split second, he imagined bursting in with Ryan's photo on his phone, the one from their Halloween hike in the Indiana dunes, both of them grinning like idiots with fake mustaches. But Ryan was back in Chicago, finishing a client pitch. The plan was for him to drive down on Christmas Eve. "Surprise them," Ryan had said over FaceTime, his voice husky with that Oregon lilt. "Show 'em the real gift." David grabbed his bag and stepped out, the cold biting through his flannel. The door creaked open to the familiar chaos. Wrapping paper carnage on the coffee table. His sister Mia, now 16 and all eyeliner and attitude, curled on the couch scrolling TikTok. "Hey, loser," she called without looking up, but her eyes flicked to him with that sibling radar for trouble. Frank grunted from his recliner, nursing a Bud Light, the Packers game flickering on mute. And Evelyn, Evelyn, emerged from the kitchen with a tray of gingerbread men, her apron dusted in flour like fresh snow. "David, my boy," she set the tray down and pulled him into a hug that smelled of vanilla and veiled disappointment. "We missed you last year. Church asked about you." The first evening unraveled like a poorly knit sweater. Dinner was pot roast and small talk. Frank's latest gripe about the union. Mia's drama with her chem lab partner. But the undercurrent was electric. Every glance from Evelyn laced with expectation. David waited for the right moment, fork midway to his mouth, when she finally asked, "Seeing anyone special in the big city?" Her tone was light, probing, the rosary beads clicking softly in her pocket like a metronome to his heartbeat. He swallowed. "Yeah, Mom. Actually, I am." The room stilled. Mia's fork clattered. Frank cleared his throat. Evelyn's smile froze. Porcelain mask. "Her name?" she ventured, and David felt the hook snag. "His name," he corrected, voice steady as he could manage. "Ryan. He's important to me." The silence stretched like taffy, then snapped. Evelyn's tray of cookies hit the floor, gingerbread shattering like brittle bones. "No," she whispered, then louder. "No, David. Not here. Not at Christmas." Frank shifted uncomfortably, muttering something about family traditions, while Mia stared, wide-eyed, caught between loyalty and the thrill of rebellion. David pushed back from the table, chair scraping like nails on chalkboard. "Mom, it's not a choice. It's me." But Evelyn was already unraveling, her faith armor cracking. "The Bible says." "I know what it says," David exploded, the dam breaking. "I've heard it my whole life. But this is my life, Mom. Ryan's my life." He stormed out, the door slamming as the hook lines etched into his memory. That night, he crashed on the lumpy couch in the den, staring at the ceiling fan's lazy spin, replaying her words, "You're no son of mine," by dawn. His phone buzzed with Ryan's text, "Miss you already. Road trip tomorrow?" David typed back, "Yeah. But it's gonna be hell." The next day dawned brittle and bright, snow dusting the fields like powdered sugar on a funeral cake. Evelyn moved through the house like a ghost, baking furiously pecan pies, divinity fudge, as if sugar could exorcise the sin. Frank retreated to the garage, tinkering with the snowblower, avoiding eye contact. Mia cornered David in the hallway, her braces glinting in the dim light. "She's freaking out, Dave. Dad said something about calling Pastor Hale." David's stomach twisted. Pastor Hale, with his fire and brimstone sermons on Sodom, had been Evelyn's rock since the mill closed. If he got involved. "I have to go," David said, packing his bag with numb fingers. Tell her I love her." Mia hugged him fierce and quick, whispering, "Bring him anyway." "Screw him." He nodded, throat tight, and hit the road by noon, the Civic's tires crunching over fresh ice. Chicago was 4 hours away, but it felt like a lifetime. Ryan met him at the door of their shared apartment. Well, Ryan's apartment, But David's toothbrush had migrated to the bathroom weeks ago, with a kiss that tasted like forgiveness and hot cocoa. "Rough," Ryan murmured, pulling him inside where fairy lights twinkled against exposed brick walls. "Worse than rough." David collapsed onto the couch, spilling the story in fits and starts. Ryan listened, his hand tracing circles on David's knee, that steady presence like an anchor in choppy waters. "We'll go back," Ryan said finally, no hesitation. "Together. On Christmas Eve, like we planned. Show them you're not alone." David searched his face, those green eyes, crinkled at the corners from too many beach days, and saw not pity, but fire. Ryan wasn't from broken homes. His parents had thrown a coming-out party with drag queens and craft beer. But he got it, the ache of conditional love. "What if they lock the door?" David whispered. "Then we make snow angels on the lawn till they crack." Ryan grinned, that lopsided thing that always undid David, and pulled him up for a dance to the Pandora station crooning Dean Martin. In that moment, swaying to "Baby, It's Cold Outside," David almost believed it could work. Almost. But Milford had other plans. As Christmas Eve crept closer, the texts from Mia painted a worsening picture. Evelyn barricading herself in prayer meetings, Frank muttering about disgrace to the name, and worst of all, a voicemail from Tommy Riley, David's old flame, now married with a kid on the way, slurring something about keeping family secrets, betrayal's first sting. Tommy, who'd ghosted him after graduation, now playing informant? David deleted it, but the poison seeped in. Ryan noticed, of course, during their packing frenzy, wrapping the gift he'd bought for Evelyn, a delicate silver locket engraved with Psalm 23, twisted with irony. "What's eating you?" Ryan asked, taping ribbon with surgical precision. "Just ghosts." David waved it off. But that night, as they made love slow and deliberate under the weight of unspoken fears, he clung tighter, whispering Ryan's name like a talisman. Morning broke with a vengeance. Flurries whipping the windshield as they merged onto I-90, Ryan's hand firm on David's thigh. The drive south was a blur of corn-stubbled fields and truck stops, classic rock on low to drown the what-ifs. By dusk, Milford's water tower loomed, painted with a faded buckeye leaf, and David's pulse thrummed like a war drum. They pulled up to the house as carols swelled from within. Silent night. Of all things. Lights blazed, but the driveway was empty save for Frank's F-150. David killed the engine, turning to Ryan. "Last chance to bail." Ryan's laugh was soft, defiant. "Not a chance. Cowboy." He leaned in, kissing David deep and sure, then grabbed the gift bag. Evelyn's locket nestled inside, alongside a photo of them from Pride, edges curled like a dare. Together, they stepped out into the snow, arm in arm, the cold no match for the heat building between them. The door loomed, and David knocked, heart hammering. Footsteps, then Mia's voice. "Dave? Oh my God. You brought him." The door swung wide, and there stood Evelyn, apron askew, eyes red-rimmed but fierce. Behind her, Frank and Pastor Hale, Bible in hand like a shield. "David," she said, voice cracking on the edge of a sob. "We prayed you'd come to your senses. This is my sense." "Mom." He stepped forward, Ryan at his side, solid as oak. "This is Ryan. And this," he thrust the bag forward, the locket glinting like a forbidden star, "is for you." Evelyn's hand trembled as she took the bag, the tissue paper crinkling like accusations in the charged air. Pastor Hale cleared his throat, his jowls quivering under the strain of righteousness. But Ryan beat him to it. Mrs. Harper, it's an honor. David's told me all about your apple pie, says it's better than anything in Chicago. His voice was warm, that Portland charm wrapping around the words like a quilt. But Evelyn's gaze dropped to the photo peeking from the bag. David and Ryan, arms slung casual around shoulders, rainbow flags whipping in the background. Her face drained of color, the locket forgotten in her fist. Out, she whispered, then louder, a dam bursting. Get that abomination out of my house. The word hit like a slap, echoing off the tinsel, and the framed cross-stitched "home is where the heart is" above the mantel. Frank stepped forward, awkward in his flannel, hands raised like he was corralling spooked cattle. Ev, easy. Let's talk inside. But Mia, bless her, grabbed Ryan's sleeve, pulling him over the threshold. Ignore her. Come see the tree. I hung your ornament. Dave. Chaos erupted in slow motion. Evelyn lunging for the bag, the photo fluttering to the floor like a fallen leaf. Pastor Hale intoning Leviticus under his breath. Ryan's arm tightening around David's waist. A silent vow. David scooped up the picture, tucking it safe, and met his mother's eyes, those eyes that had once sparkled reading "The Night Before Christmas" by flashlight during power outages. Mom, please, just listen. But listening was a luxury Milford didn't afford. The pastor's voice rose, a tidal wave of scripture crashing over them. Do you not know that wrongdoers will not inherit the kingdom of God? Neither the sexually immoral. Ryan stiffened, his easy smile fracturing, but he held ground, green eyes flashing. With all due respect, sir, that's your book. This is our life. Evelyn recoiled as if slapped, clutching the locket like a crucifix warding off vampires. Frank, ever the peacemaker, herded them into the living room, the scent of pine and regret thick as fog. They sat in a brittle circle, David and Ryan on the love seat, thighs pressed for courage, Evelyn and Pastor Hale on the floral sofa, a gulf of plaid cushions between. Frank hovering by the fireplace, poking at logs like he could burn away the tension. Mia cross-legged on the rug, filming discreetly on her phone because Gen Z documented apocalypses. Ryan broke the ice first, handing Evelyn the locket with steady hands. Open it. Please. She hesitated, fingers fumbling the clasp. And inside, the psalm verse etched in elegant script. The Lord is my shepherd. Her breath hitched, tears spilling as she traced the words. David picked it because it's your favorite, Ryan said softly. He remembers everything. For a heartbeat, the room softened, the fire crackling companionable, carols murmuring from the radio. Evelyn's shoulders slumped, the fight leaching out like air from a punctured tire. Why him? She murmured, not looking up. Why now, when we're trying to hold this family together? David leaned forward, voice raw. Because he's my together, Mom. The mill took Dad's job. The city took my dreams. But Ryan, he gave me hope. Real hope. Not the kind that comes with strings. Pastor Hale snorted, but Frank shot him a look sharp, paternal. Boy's got a point. We've lost enough. Silence fell again, heavy with the weight of unsaid histories. Frank's own brother, Uncle Ray, who'd drunk himself to death after coming out in '92, the family whispering suicide to save face. Evelyn knew, they all did. Her eyes flicked to the photo on the coffee table, David and Ryan laughing under a sky bruised purple by sunset. You look happy, she admitted, voice small as a child's. Ryan nodded, squeezing David's hand. We are. But we'd be happier with you in it. Mia chimed in then. Fierce. Yeah. Grandma. Mom. It's 2025. Gay marriage is legal. Duh. And Dave's not even asking to get hitched here. Just dinner. Laughter bubbled. Tentative. From Frank. A rusty sound that eased the knots in David's chest. Even the pastor shifted, muttering about love thy neighbor. But peace in Milford was fleeting as a January thaw. As they passed plates of Evelyn's reheated pot roast, awkward toasts with eggnog clinking glasses, the doorbell rang, sharp as a judge's gavel. Mia hopped up, but Evelyn froze, whispering, Don't answer. Too late. Tommy Riley stood on the stoop, snow-dusted parka unzipped over a flannel that strained at his beer gut, his wife Karen peering over his shoulder with their toddler on her hip. Heard you were back, Dave, Tommy drawled, eyes glassy from whatever flask warmed his pocket. And with company. The word dripped venom, and David felt the betrayal bloom full force. Tommy, who'd sworn secrecy after their fumbling teenage trysts, now here to stir the pot for sport. Ryan rose smoothly, blocking the doorway like a sentinel. Tommy, right? David's told me about you. High school hero. It was a jab wrapped in velvet. And Tommy flushed, stepping inside uninvited, the cold trailing him like a bad omen. Karen cooed at Mia, but her eyes darted, cataloging the scene. We brought pie, Tommy said, thrusting a foil-wrapped lump forward. For old time's sake. Evelyn accepted it woodenly, but the mood shattered like the earlier cookies. Tommy's gaze lingered on Ryan, assessing, hungry before landing on David with a smirk. Still chasing shadows. Buddy? Thought the city cured that. David's blood roared. Get out, Tom. You've done enough damage. But Tommy, emboldened by the audience, leaned in. Damage? Like telling your ma the truth last year? Someone had to. The room gasped, Mia audibly, and Evelyn's face crumpled, the locket slipping to the carpet. Betrayal's knife twisted. Not just Tommy's loose lips, but the realization that her phase prayers had been built on his poison all along. Ryan's hand found David's, grounding him, but fury won. Truth? You ran. Tommy. Married Karen to hide. Popped out a kid like a shield. That's not truth. That's cowardice. Karen gasped, scooping the toddler closer, and stormed out, but Tommy lingered, face purple. You think you're better? Parading this freak show at Christmas. Pastor Hale nodded vigorously, emboldened, launching into another tirade. Ryan's calm cracked then. He stepped forward, voice low thunder. Call him a freak again, and you're out on your ass. This is David's home, not your confessional. Frank, surprisingly, backed him. Enough, Tom. Go sleep it off. Tommy sneered but retreated, the door banging shut behind him like a full stop. The aftermath was a wreckage. Evelyn retreating to the kitchen, sobs muffled by running water. Pastor Hale excusing himself with pious mutters. Mia hugging David tight, whispering, That was badass. Ryan pulled David into the backyard, away from the lights, where snow muffled the world. They stood under the skeletal maple, breaths fogging the air. You okay? Ryan asked, cupping David's face. Not really. David leaned into him, the solid warmth a lifeline. But with you? Yeah. They kissed then, slow and fierce, the kind that sealed promises against the dark. Inside, Frank found them later, clearing his throat awkwardly. Your ma. She's praying. But she kept the locket. It wasn't absolution, but it was a crack in the ice. Christmas morning dawned hushed, the house blanketed in 6 inches of fresh powder. David woke to the smell of cinnamon rolls, Evelyn's peace offering, and Ryan's arm slung possessive over his waist. Both crammed into his old twin bed because no funny business under this roof, Frank had grumbled. Downstairs, the tree glittered, presents piled haphazard, and for a miracle, Evelyn was there, eyes puffy but open. Merry Christmas, she said, voice tentative, handing David a mug of coffee. Ryan got one too, black with 2 sugars. David must have spilled that detail. They opened gifts in fits and starts. Mia's handmade earrings for Ryan to match your vibe. Frank's wool socks, practical, son. And Evelyn's to David, a leather-bound sketchbook, the kind he'd begged for as a kid. For your drawings, she said, avoiding his eyes. Even if they're different. Ryan's turn. He gave Frank a vintage Packers flask, engraved with, to the real MVP, earning a gruff chuckle. To Mia, a set of queer graphic novels that made her squeal. And to Evelyn, a framed print of the Dunes photo, cropped to just the horizon. Beauty in the unexpected, he explained. But the real gift lingered unspoken, the one David carried in his chest, heavy as hope. As they cleared plates, Evelyn pulled him aside in the pantry, the air thick with spices. I called Tommy last night. Told him never to darken our door again. Her hands twisted the dish towel. And the pastor. He doesn't speak for God. Or for me. Tears welled, and David hugged her, the embrace fierce and forgiving. I love you, Mom. Always. Outside, Ryan shoveled the walk, his laugh carrying on the wind as Mia pelted him with snowballs. Frank joined, a rare grin splitting his face. For the first time, Milford felt less like a cage and more like a crossroads. But shadows loomed. Tommy's wife had posted a cryptic Facebook rant about family values under attack, tags lighting up the local group like fireflies on meth. Whispers would spread, jobs threatened, pews emptied. David knew it, felt it in the bite of the cold as he stepped out to help Ryan. Yet in that moment, watching his lover, his partner, pack snow with gloved hands, green eyes sparkling under the brim of his beanie, David chose. Chose love over legacy, truth over tradition. Hey, Ryan called, tossing a loose snowball his way. You joining or what? David grinned, scooping a handful. Damn right, the fight was far from over. But for now, under the Ohio sky heavy with promise, they had this, a family remade, fragile but whole. The idol shattered by New Year's, as Milford's grapevine twisted faster than kudzu in July. Tommy's indiscretion had bloomed into a full scandal. Karen's post, liked and shared by half the PDA, painted David as the prodigal sinner dragging that California boy into their God-fearing town. Evelyn fielded calls from church ladies feigning concern. Just praying for your boy. Ev, remember Uncle Ray? Frank's buddies at the VFW cornered him over pool. Heard your kid's one of them now. Tough break. Even Mia's school buzzed. Her locker scrawled with fag lover in Sharpie. Scrubbed clean by the principal, but the stain lingered. David and Ryan extended their stay, holing up in the den with space heaters and takeout from the diner, greasy burgers that tasted like defiance. Nights blurred into strategy sessions. Ryan sketching protest posters on David's new sketchbook, bold lines of fists raised in rainbows. David venting sketches of Milford as a crumbling gingerbread house. figures fleeing the collapse. "We fight or we fold?" Ryan asked one midnight, body slick and spent, his fingers tracing the constellation of freckles across David's chest. "Fight," David murmured, but doubt gnawed. A letter arrived midweek, forwarded from Chicago. Acceptance to the Illinois Institute of Art. Full ride for graphic design. Ryan whooped, twirling him around the kitchen till Evelyn walked in, mid-sip of her tea, eyebrows arched. "Good news?" she asked, and David explained, words tumbling. Her smile was cautious, but real. "Proud of you. Always was. Progress, inch by inch." But betrayal's second act struck like lightning. Pastor Hale, cornered by the gossip, preached a sermon that Sunday, "The Prodigal's Peril, veiled barbs at sons who forsake the fold for fleeting flesh." The congregation nodded, but Evelyn stood midway through, rosary clattering to the pew. "Enough," she declared, voice carrying like a clarion. "My son is welcome in God's house or mine, flaws and all." Gasps rippled. Frank, in the back row, stood too, hand on her shoulder. They walked out to a stunned silence. Mia live tweeting from the narthex, Milford miracle. Word spread, but so did the backlash. Tommy, nursing grudges and hangovers, escalated. Anonymous tips to David's old high school coach. Whispers to Frank's foreman about distractions in the family. Ryan's freelance gig soured too. A Milford-based client, some AG co-op, ghosted after values review. Coincidence? Ryan scoffed over whiskey in a dive bar on the edge of town. Neon bud sign buzzing like angry bees. David shook his head, the weight settling. This is what they mean by love the sinner, hate the sin. Ryan's eyes darkened, that Oregon fire flaring. Screw 'em. We're building our own table. He pulled out his phone, dialing his folks in Portland. "Hey, Ma got a wild idea. Road trip east, by dawn." A plan coalesced. A Harper Ellis Christmas redux, but on neutral ground, Chicago, with Ryan's family flying in for a queer-inclusive feast. Evelyn balked at first. Flying? In this economy? But Frank, surprising everyone, booked the tickets. Life's short. Learned that at the mill. The drive north was cathartic. Windows down despite the chill. Springsteen blasting Born to Run as cornfields gave way to toll roads. Mia chattered about college apps. Evelyn quizzed Ryan on his tattoos. "That one's for my sister, ovarian cancer. God rest her." And Frank even cracked jokes about city folk and their kale. David drove, Ryan's hand on his knee, the rearview mirror reflecting a family not fixed, but flexing. Chicago welcomed them with skyline sparkle. Ryan's apartment a cozy chaos of takeout menus and half-finished canvases. The Ellis clan descended like a benevolent whirlwind. Ryan's mom, Jo, a wiry ex-hippie with henned hair and hugs that smelled of patchouli. His dad, Mike, a burly union plumber who bear-hugged Frank like old war buddies. Sisters Lila and Sage, tattooed and teasing, roping Mia into karaoke. Christmas dinner was potluck pandemonium. Joe's vegan turkey loaf alongside Evelyn's pecan pie. Toasts clinking with To New Roots. Evelyn, tipsy on spiked cider, pulled Ryan aside by the balcony railing. City lights winking below. "You make him light up," she admitted, voice thick. "Like he used to, before." "Everything." Ryan nodded, throat tight. "He's always been light. Just needed room to shine." She pressed the locket into his palm. "Keep it safe for him." And for the first time, hugged him unbidden. But Milford's reach was long. Back home, the new year brought eviction notices, not for them, but for the Harpers' landlord, some church deacon pressuring with moral clauses. Frank's foreman called, "Take a leave, buddy." Till the dust settles. Betrayal layered on betrayal. Tommy's shadow everywhere. David snapped one night, hurling a mug at the wall, shards scattering like his resolve. "We can't win this," he raged, pacing the kitchen while Ryan swept. "They're suffocating us." Ryan dropped the broom, pulling him close. "Then we breathe deeper. Art school starts in fall. We'll crash with Joe and Mike till then. This isn't the end. It's the pivot." His words were balm, but the high were thin. Whispers turned to actions. Eggs on the Civic. Slashed tires on Frank's truck. Evelyn's bridge club dissolved overnight. Ladies crossing streets to avoid her. "It's me," she said one evening, baking bread with furious needs. "I'm the poison now." "No, Mom. You're the antidote." David hugged her, flour dusting his shirt. Ryan, ever the planner, organized a town hall neutral ground at the library, flyers plastered with dialogue over division. Attendance was sparse. A dozen locals, Pastor Hale front row with Bible, Tommy lurking in back with a sneer. Ryan moderated, voice steady. "We're here not to convert, but to coexist. David's my partner. Evelyn's my family. Who's with us?" Hands rose. Slowly. The librarian, a quiet lesbian who'd hidden for decades. Frank's VFW pal, whose son was trans. Mia's drama teacher, ally through and through. Evelyn spoke last, voice quavering but clear. "I feared losing my boy to the world. But I almost lost him to my fear." Applause. Tentative. Then thunderous. Tommy slunk out midway, but the tide shifted. Ripples of change. Yet climax brewed in the shadows. Late February. A call from Chicago. Ryan's ex, Alex, a volatile painter from his Portland days, surfaced, drunk dialing about unfinished business. David overheard, jealousy flaring like dry tinder. "Who's Alex?" he demanded later, over cold pizza in the den. Ryan sighed, rubbing temples. "Ancient history. Toxic as hell, cheated, lied, left me wrecked." But doubt festered. David scrolled old Instagrams. Alex's arms slung possessive around Ryan in grainy shots. "You never mentioned." "Because it's buried." Ryan's frustration cracked. "Trust me, Dave. Or don't." The fight escalated. Words like shrapnel. David's insecurities about Milford's baggage. Ryan's impatience with the half-in, half-out limbo. "I uprooted for you," Ryan yelled, rare anger flashing. "Gave up gigs, stability, and I gave up my home." David shot back, storming out into the sleet. He drove aimlessly, ending at the old bleachers where it all started with Tommy, irony bitter as bile. Hours later, Ryan found him, soaked and shivering. "I'm sorry," Ryan said. No preamble, wrapping him in a blanket from the car. "Alex was a mistake. You're my truth." They talked till dawn, raw and real, forging stronger from the fracture. Spring thawed the fields, and with it, tentative normalcy. Art school loomed, Ryan's portfolio swelling with Milford-inspired pieces, rustic rainbows over rusted silos. Evelyn joined PFLAG, her first meeting a tearful triumph. Frank got rehired, foreman citing guts. But Tommy's final betrayal loomed. A leaked video, Mia's old TikTok of the family toast, edited with slurs and scripture overlays. Viral in county Facebook groups. Threats poured in. Leave town. Freaks. The night before David's departure, they gathered on the porch, fireflies winking like conspirators. Ryan raised a beer. To Milford, flaws and all. Evelyn clinked her seltzer. To Sakan's chances. As David loaded the Civic, Ryan slipped the locket around his neck. Your mom's gift. Our anchor. Summer scorched Milford like a reckoning, humidity clinging to skin like unspoken sins. David and Ryan settled into a shoebox studio near the Art Institute. Walls papered with Ryan's prints and David's charcoal studies of Ohio ghosts. Faded barns, empty grandstands, a mother's hands folded in prayer. Days blurred into academia. David's lectures on composition and color theory. Ryan freelancing from coffee shops. His client list blooming with queer brands from Etsy to Etsy knockoffs. Nights were sanctuary, take-out Thai on the fire escape. Bodies mapping each other like uncharted maps. Laughter echoing off the L tracks. But Milford pulled like gravity. Weekly calls with Evelyn devolved into updates laced with ache. The church split, half following her to a progressive congregation in Dayton. Frank's promotion shadowed by whispers. Mia's prom date, a shy non-binary kid from art class, dodging slurs in the halls. Tommy's stirring again. Evelyn confessed one August evening, voice tinny over speakerphone. Ryan, chopping veggies for stir-fry, paused. What now? Running for town council. Platforms, family values. Folks are eating it up. David's gut twisted. Tommy, the boy who'd once whispered, I love you, in the dark, now weaponizing it. Ryan plated dinner, sliding David's favorite lemongrass chicken across the scarred oak table. We go back. Rally the troops. It was decided over fortune cookies. Labor Day weekend, a counter-event at the county fair. Pride in the Heartland, Ryan dubbed it, flyers designed with wheat fields framing rainbow flags. The drive south was a fevered dream of nostalgia. Rest stops with vending machines stocked with nostalgia, radio flipping between Cary Underwood and Chapel Roan. Milford greeted them with Harvest Moon vibes, booths hawking funnel cakes and quilt raffles, the air sweet with cotton candy and manure. Their booth, a pop-up tent near the Ferris wheel, drew curious clusters. Evelyn manning the literature table, her new PFLAG pin glinting, Frank grilling veggie dogs, even for you city vegans. Mia DJing indie folk with queer anthems. Ryan's charm offensive worked wonders. Sign-ups for ally trainings, donations to local shelters. David sketched live portraits, capturing weathered farmers with tentative smiles, their wives clutching his hand. Bless you, son. But Tommy's shadow loomed, his campaign table across the green. Red, white, and blue banners screaming, Keep Milford Pure. He sauntered over mid-afternoon, megaphone in hand, cronies trailing like hyenas. Harper, Ellis, come to recruit. His laugh was forced, eyes bloodshot. Ryan straightened, paint smudges on his cheek from a kid's mural workshop. Nah, Tom. Just reminding folks love's not a ballot item. Tommy's gaze raked David, lingering hungry. Love? That's rich. Coming from you too. Remember sophomore year. Dave? Locker room promises. The jab landed, dredging memories David had buried. Stolen glances, fumbling touches under coach's nose. Crowd murmurs swelled. Phones out. David's temper flared, charcoal stick snapping in his fist. That was then. This is now, with a man who chose me. Ryan's hand on his shoulder steadied. But Tommy pressed. Chose? Or settled? Heard your boys got options. Portland pretty boys lining up. It was a lie, seeded from Alex's vengeful DMs months back. But it struck David's core insecurity. Evelyn stepped in. Fierce. Enough, Thomas. Your poison's run its course. The fair commission intervened, diffusing with polite dispersal. But the damage festered. That night, back at the house, David unraveled over beers on the porch swing. What if he's right? What if I'm just your Milford pity project? Ryan knelt before him, green eyes fierce in the bug zapper's glow. Pity? Babe, you're my muse. The sketches you did of us in the dunes? Hung em in the studio. You're home. He kissed David's knuckles, then lips, slow burn to wildfire. Upstairs, in the guest room, they reclaimed each other, hands reverent, bodies a testament against doubt. Fall gilded the leaves, and with it, high stakes. Tommy's campaign surged, polls informal as diner napkins, showing him neck and neck with the incumbent. Ryan's network amplified, Portland allies shipping swag, Chicago queer orgs boosting online. David's thesis show loomed, a series titled Band Gifts, Portraits of Fractured Families Mending Under Holiday Haze. Evelyn visited for opening night, Frank in tow, her gasp at the centerpiece, her own likeness, locket aglow turning to tears. It's beautiful, she whispered, hugging him amid the wine-sipping crowd. But betrayal's crescendo built in whispers. Alex resurfaced, this time in flesh, crashing Ryan's gallery talk at SAIC, disheveled and desperate. We need to talk. That Milford mess, it's dragging you down. David, lingering in the back, felt the old wound reopen. Later, confrontation in the alley behind the venue. Alex's hand on Ryan's arm, pleading. Come back to Portland. Real art, real life, no small-town drama. Ryan shrugged him off. That life's dead. David's my now. But David, hidden in shadows, heard enough to spiral. He ghosted Ryan that night, crashing at a classmate's. Phone silenced. Morning brought Ryan at the door. I shadowed, coffee in hand. Running? That's my ex's move. David crumbled, spilling fears. Alex wants you free. And part of me thinks you should be. Ryan's laugh was bittersweet. Free? I'm chained to you. Idiot in the best way. They reconciled over waffles at a greasy spoon. Vows renewed. No more ghosts. But Milford called again election eve. Tommy's final push. A values vigil at the Baptist church. Fire lit and fervent. Counter-protest organized. David and Ryan driving through pouring rain. Joining a soggy phalanx of allies under umbrellas painted pride colors. Clash was inevitable. Tommy on the steps. Mic in hand. We stand for God, guns, and family. Cheers from the faithful. Ryan, megaphone commandeered from Mia, countered. We stand for love, all of it. Scuffle erupted, shoves, chants clashing like cymbals. David pulled Ryan back as cops waded in, but not before Tommy lunged, fist connecting with Ryan's jaw in a crack of thunder. Blood welled, not gushing but stark against pale skin. Faggot, Tommy snarled, unmasked. Chaos. Arrests threatened. Evelyn's scream cutting through. Thomas Riley, you've shamed us all. Pastor Hale dragging Tommy away, face ashen. Ryan spat red, but grinned through the split lip. Worth it. Medics patched him curbside, David holding ice to the bruise blooming purple. In the ER waiting room, Frank arrived with donuts, figured you'd need fuel, and Evelyn, Rosary clicking, prayed over Ryan's hand. "My boy's tough," she said, and Ryan winked. "Takes after his ma." Election night was awake. Tommy conceded by 8 p.m. Margin slim but seismic turnout from the other side tipping scales. Revelry at the diner. Pie slices and toasts. Mia crowned hero for her viral counter video. But high came the crash. Ryan's jaw wired for weeks. Gigs postponed. David's show reviews mixed. One critic calling it Midwest melodrama. Deeper. The violence lingered. Tommy's hate a mirror to Milford's underbelly. Winter crept back. Snow blanketing scars. David proposed over Thanksgiving leftovers. Ring a simple band engraved with "My Shepherd," the locket's echo. Ryan said yes under the studio lights. Joe and Mike Zoom cheering from Portland. Evelyn's Christmas card arrived early. "Proud to walk you down the aisle. Love, Mom." But as vows loomed, doubts whisper. Was peace Pyrrhic? Tommy skipped town. Job lost. But ripples endured. Crosses burned on lawns. Not theirs, but close. Spring wedding bloomed in Chicago's Lincoln Park. Cherry blossoms confetti-ng the air like blessings deferred. The ceremony was intimate. 50 souls under a tent strung with Edison bulbs. Mia as best woman in a thrifted tuxedo jacket. Frank walking David down the aisle with a grip that said no turning back. Evelyn sat front row. Locket around her neck. Dabbing eyes with a hanky embroidered Harper Strong. Ryan waited at the arch. Jaw scar a faint silver line. Green eyes locked on David like he was the only horizon. Vows were raw poetry. David's, sketched in his thesis hand. "You were the gift I feared most. Truth in flesh. Love without ledger." Ryan's, voice steady. "I banned my fears for you. Now we rewrite the rules." Rings exchanged. Kiss sealing it amid whoops and petals. Reception spilled into the park. Food trucks slinging gourmet mac and cheese. A playlist from Mia's queer canon. Joe leading a conga line that snaked through dog walkers. Frank cornered Ryan by the bonfire pit. "Treat him right, son. Or you'll answer to me." Ryan clapped his shoulder. "Wouldn't dream otherwise, sir." Honeymoon was a road trip west, echo of their first drive, but unbound. Portland welcomed with craft brews and coastal hikes. Ryan's family enveloping them in salt air and stories. "You two glow," Joe said over clam chowder. And David believed it, the knot in his chest loosening like fog burning off. Back in Chicago, life layered on. David's graduation. Portfolio scooped by a boutique agency. Ryan's solo show. Gifts unwrapped. Selling out with Milford motifs reframed in resilience. They adopted a mutt named Shepherd. Shep for short. Furry chaos that chewed Ryan's sneakers but licked David's doubts away. Milford visits normalized. Summers at the lake house Frank finally bought with back pay. Evelyn thrived in her PFLAG chapter. Mentoring moms like Karen, Tommy's ex, now solo with the kid, seeking solace in shared regret. Tommy himself resurfaced sporadically. An apology letter, stiff and scripted, ignored, a sighting at the VFW, hollow-eyed and humbled. No redemption arc, but irrelevance a footnote in their epic. Yet humanity's arc bent slow. Mia came out as by sophomore year, Evelyn's embrace fiercer for the practice. Frank volunteered at the shelter, building tiny homes for runaways. "Real work," he grunted. David's first commission, a mural for the Dayton church, intertwined hands under a banner, "All are welcome." Ryan photographed the unveiling, capturing Evelyn's smile, unshadowed. Anniversary 1 marked with a quiet dinner. Dune's picnic redux, waves lapping like applause. "Remember the hook?" David asked, locket glinting on Ryan's chain now. Banned from Christmas. Scared of the gift. Ryan pulled him close, sand shifting under them. Best fear I ever faced. You. Years folded like accordions. Careers cresting. A brownstone in Andersonville with a garden for Shep's successors. Nephews from Mia's eventual coming-out wedding. Tumbling through holidays scented with Evelyn's pies, now rainbow-frosted. Frank's passing was gentle. Emphysema's toll. His last words to David. Proud, son. Real proud. Evelyn moved closer. The spare room her nest. Rosary beads traded for knitting needles clicking lullabies. By kitsch threaded through, not unscarred. Ryan's cancer scare in 32. Caught early but carving hollows. David's novel. Banned echoes. Lauded but dredging old wounds. Therapy a weekly ritual. Tommy's obituary in 35. Overdose. Whispers of regret. Stirred no triumph. Only pity's quiet ache. But romance endured. Anniversaries in Paris. Hands clasped over sane bridges. Lazy Sundays sketching each other's lines. Silver threading hair. On their silver jubilee, they returned to Milford, now a blip on a progressive map. Pride flags fluttering from porches. The house stood, repainted sage, Mia's family filling it with chaos. Under the old maple, snow dusting early, Ryan knelt again, not proposal, but promise. Still my gift, David teased, pulling him up. Always, kiss in the flurry, family spilling out with cocoa. No bands, no fears, just love, human and hallowed, the ultimate humanism. Forgiveness forged in fire, family redefined by grace. In the end, it wasn't victory or vanquish, but vindication, the quiet kind, where a boy once banned found his place holding the hand of the man who made home holy. And in Milford's quiet nights, under stars indifferent as God, David whispered thanks for the slam, the fight, the gift his mother once feared most. For Ryan. For them.